Thursday, and today we're going to be talking about, every week we're going to be talking about either films, TV series or music albums or anything what's influenced my being of who I am. So the first TV programme I'm going to talk about is Ally McBeal. So people might be thinking, why Ally McBeal? What makes that show so special? So Ally McBeal started in 1999. Now, if you were in the UK, you couldn't watch it on HBO cable because we didn't have HBO cable system. Now we do with a digital service, which has only been released a year ago. So how I got to manage to watch Ally McBeal, I used to watch it on terrestrial TV, a channel called Channel 4. So Ally McBeal was out, like, say, 4 or 5 months in America before we got it here in the UK. So what makes Ally McBeal, I think, one of the best TV shows ever in the history of TV? Well, a couple of reasons. One, the main character. The main character, Ally, is a lawyer, and she, the first beginning of the episode, she gets sacked from one law firm and she gets taken in to a law firm called Cage and Fish. Richard Fish is the owner, probably a very male chauvinistic, money-orientated person, and Johncage, as called the funny little man, is a bit of an eccentric. Ally McBeal is a very good lawyer, but she has her own personal issues. She has this fear of becoming 30 and this idyllic idea that she wants to be married, have children. The visions is important because as a child, when you are spiritual, you see visions of different things happening in your life. So Ally McBeal, to have that showing on a TV show was quite unique at the time. Computer graphics were very primitive because it's 1999, 98. But the idea of that show was important, that professionals show their vulnerability. We also see all the other characters who around Ally McBeal are very important. So we see Billy, who is her former soulmate, first love, and he's now married to another lawyer who's in the firm. So you've got this kind of personal conflict. So you've not only got Ally McBeal's journey of who she is, you've got these personal conflicts of all these other characters who are all very interesting, depthy, flawed characters. The good thing about this is the TV show, is that you don't always have to root for the characters because there's sometimes you actually dislike them. They do things which you don't understand and you think, why do they do them? And then as you get on and learn about flashbacks and so forth, you get to know why these people act the way they are. Of Ally McBeal, especially the first 3 seasons, is the context of how that show worked. Now, with the context of that show, how it worked, is that it ended up being this very intricate, clever show because it dealt with so many themes.
I'm not sure how it all started.
Hey!
I quit.
This is perfect. I just started my own practice. You will join us today.
I'm married. Bygones.
Bygones.
Bygones?
Snappish.
Chinese waddle.
Bitch.
Man.
Bite my head off.
Objection!
Dink! Hit me.
Anything can happen around here, Ally. You keep forgetting we don't live in a real world.
Even now.
Oh, balls, move on.
Who the hell is SpongeBob?
Race ipsa de facto quid pro quo, e pluribus penis.
Sex.
Sex.
Do my knee. I'm pregnant.
She has a penis!
My first, my last.
You're a wacko!
Your plumbing's old.
You're fired.
I'm done.
Do you know what you're doing?
I do.
I'm your daughter.
So with the themes in Ally McBeal, this is just a snapshot of some of the ideas. So series 1, you have episode 4 is there's an affair with an older person. So this is Ally McBeal has an affair with her lecturer. Then there's also there's a couple of things coming up in these episodes, which is quite interesting. There was a couple of episodes now, for the context, probably wouldn't relate to a lot of people. The younger generation may not like it. But for example, it was one of the first shows which actually had a transgender in the male patriarchal world, and how people treated them. It was quite an interesting way in the 90s to illustrate that, which just probably was the first time that was done on a TV show in a way which was also very respectful. There was themes of life, ethics versus religion, very much a lot of sexual harassment cases as well. And this is, to me, was a kind of the beginning of showing what the law could do to help people. And I think this show really showed the difference and the time changing from the 90s era of that ideal thing of the 90s being this nostalgic and the 80s being all this millennium power. And it was just showing how the life was slightly changing. I think that cusp of change, that new millennial, was very important as that program. And I think it was done at the right time. We also can go at the idea of this hitting 30 and the idealistic view of life. Past life example, another thing I've mentioned about Throwback Tuesday and about how that works. Self-defense for women, how that men in the patriarchal world believed, in some forms of men, believed that women should have their place. Idea of friendships becoming romantic, and they're sort of what we call the borderline of that. Organ transplants and the ethics behind it. This is just in season 1. And when we go probably the biggest season, I think, would probably be season 3 and 5 for actual context. So we've got a couple of other things as well. The idea of someone who actually is in a coma, where they ask about the law about turning someone off, and about euthanasia, and about the idea of whether people, when they're dying of cancer, should be able to choose their own death after they're literally not able to. There's also another couple of things as well. Marriage comes up. Adoption as well comes up as a theme quite a lot in the show. And the idea of also dementia. Again, there's so many things. It's I think for a show, and it's like I can't even probably talk about this in a 10-minute video, 10-minute clips video, because it's just so depthy. And I think the only thing I can explain is when we look at these subjects, is that sometimes we have to look at subjects in a different way. And I think Ally McBeal, what it did, it bordered the line on drama, romance, but it also used comedy effect. And I think the comedy effect was very useful. And I think when it actually goes into one of the things about mental illness, goes on about, because Ally has hallucinations, and the idea of pharmaceutical pill popping and how people try and dampen that person.
It started with these visions. I should say hallucinations, because they definitely weren't my normal fantasies. He would just appear.
This Alan person.
Al. And the problem is that I think I've fallen in love with him.
Alan,
Yes.
what I'd like to do is put you on Prozac.
What?
We could start with a lower dose.
I'm not going on Prozac.
Well, there's no stigma to it, sweetheart. I'm on it.
No, it's a mind-altering drug.
Allie, you're not well. I know how you feel, but I've been a therapist since before you were born. So you're gonna have to trust me when I tell you that you won't find happiness through love or by turning to God. It comes in a pill. There can even be joy in the taking. Mine comes in suppository form. Gives me a little wriggle.
But I think one of the main things is in Series 5, which wasn't the best series, but it came up with a couple of interesting episodes. One of the things I think was very interesting was there was someone who was dying of HIV terminal illness, and they were suing their employee because they got sacked. There was also another thing was about egg donor fertility, and in fact, accordingly, Ally McBeal had given one of her eggs, frozen her eggs, and one of her eggs was actually given to the wrong person, and a daughter came out. A daughter was born, and she actually goes and finds Ally. So this is a very interesting topic, which now people can do now, but back then it wasn't really discussed.
Hello.
Hi.
It's a little late, but I'll take 6 boxes.
I'm not selling cookies.
Oh,
Are you Allison McBeal?
I am?
Do you like surprises?
I hate them. Am I about to get one?
Sort of. Want it straight up or would you like to sit?
Hit me.
I'm your daughter. Did you hear me?
I'm just waiting for the little fantasy beat to be over. You're still standing there.
Because I'm still here. And I'm still your daughter.
Obviously, that's impossible.
Obviously, it's not. Look, 10.5 years ago, you harvested some eggs and stored them. By mistake at the facility, they gave one of your eggs to a man known as Robert Harrington, my father, who passed away 6 months ago. I was placed with a wicked aunt. I escaped this morning. I spent 2 months tracking you down. Hi, Mom.
And I think one of the last episodes, which was incredibly interesting, was Split Personality Dissociative Identity Disorder, and it was a very powerful episode. Kyra Sedgwick is the character in it, and she's amazing in it. And I think the one thing with Ally McBeal, there was some negatives. I'm going to explain the negatives just now. So the negatives Ally McBeal had at the time was they claimed there was an over-sexualization of black characters. So Renee was a perfect example. Ally dated a black guy who was Jesse L. Martin in it, and it was always these ideas of, and even Barry White was the idea of this over-sexualized ideal. And I think that's probably one of the things what has spoilt it, looking back. I mean, 1999 when it first started. I mean, this is now what, 20? Yeah, I mean, we're looking at what, 24 years ago, 25 years ago when it first started. So things change, and I think if David E. Kelley now wrote it now, I think it'd be very different. However, I think there's some interesting points that what we can learn from it is the idea of how a female character, the empowerment of how she stands up for herself and all these things, I think was very forward thinking at the time, because most female characters in most TV shows at that time were quite whimsical. And though people thought Ally McBeal was a bit kooky, she was quite a strong woman. She had it together. Even though on the surface it may have not looked it, but there's some really interesting things how she, even though she apologises that she can break people down. And all within the thing, there's a lot of psychiatry within it. Tracy Ullman plays a great psychiatrist in it. Betty White does as well. And there's a few who play some really interesting ideas.
You asked him out?
Basically.
The GQ cutie child?
Yes.
Abercrombie and Fitchy boy?
Okay, you don't approve.
No, it isn't that. I'm just surprised to see you predisposed toward fun.
Look, I have nothing against having a good time. It's just something I happen not to enjoy.
Ah.
Anyway, we went out, and, in fact, I did have a good time. We were dancing at the bar to Vonda Shepard and the Ikettes. They were singing Turn the Beat Around. You know that song?
Yes.
Ugh, I was really going. And this was the problem.
Why?
Well, I was getting worked up. And when I dance, I can get
hot.
Sizzling. Oh, and when they got to that part of the song?
Which part?
The part. When the guitar player starts playing with the syncopated rhythm with a scratch, 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 makes me want to move my body, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when the drummer starts beating that beat, he nails that beat with the syncopated rhythm with a
tat, 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 tat
on the drums. Yes, I understand.
So, why I give Ally, to conclude, why I give Ally McBeal a great series, and it's actually there's going to be 5 series I'm going to pick, which are 10 out of 10. Ally McBeal is one of them, and the reason why I think it's good is because at the time it was so forward thinking. 24 years ago, and so forth, and actually it's even longer than that. So it's actually, it must be older. It must be like the 24, 25 years ago, first premiered. Is that at that time, to present something that forward thinking, probably without even the idea of it, makes one of the things of David E. Kelley why he's a great writer. David E. Kelley, if you don't understand who he is, used to be a lawyer, very powerful lawyer, and then he decided to give it up and wanted to get into TV writing. He wrote LA Law, he wrote Ally McBeal, he also wrote Boston Legal, he also did Harry's Law, which didn't do very well, but actually is a very good series. And David E. Kelley has done other stuff as well. But what I found with his work is he made the characters were all flawed somehow, but they also managed to get over their obstacles. And it's something I think is missing in most TV now, that everything sounds a bit formulaic. Ally McBeal was not a formulaic show. It just wasn't. And I think it really pushed a lot of boundaries. And HBO, to me, which is why one of the reasons I rate people to actually pay for the HBO subscription service, is because HBO in the 90s and the 2000s had some of the best shows. I mean, actually, out of the top 5 shows I'm going to mention, these are the ones I'm going to mention. Ally McBeal is the first. Oz is another great show. The Sopranos is a great show. Sex in the City. I mean, these are all HBO produced shows, and they are excellent shows. So I think, to be honest, HBO just really pushed out the boundaries, and they took risks, which is something I think only one TV production company does that, and that's A24. So please, when you get a chance, I know in the context of 24 years, there is going to be some things that are out of date. There's going to be things that may trigger certain people, but Ally McBeal as a TV show, I think, is for people, if they are nostalgic, I think they should watch that show and see actually it's not as dated as you think, and the ideals in it are very interesting. Personally, when you look at that show and then you look at something like Friends, you can tell the difference in what is dated, and Friends is very dated, I think, personally. The other show, so like I said, it's going to be Ally McBeal I spoke about today. Oz is the next one. Sopranos is the next. Sex in the City, and then Frasier. Frasier wasn't produced by HBO, unfortunately, but it should have been. However, all these shows, and the reason Ally McBeal to me is a great, and I think actually one of the things I'd like to say is Calistaflockhart, I have no idea why she never had a bigger career after Ally McBeal, because personally, as a character with depth, and the ideas of what she does and what she actually done in the show, I don't know why they never gave her a bigger platform after that. But then, that's, again, who knows. Anyway, thank you